This is from the morning show on Twitch, but now that you're watching this on YouTube, you should like and subscribe and the stuff that's helpful and free. Um okay, so now I want to talk about breaking in the Olympics. Um I've seen a lot of different points of view on the idea of it. Um Ideas ranging from should this be a sport? I mean, is this a sport? Does this belong in the Olympics? Um, who should be competing in it and who shouldn't be competing in it? And for some of the people who did compete in it, what were their qualifications? Um, I've seen a lot of different takes. I think it's a fascinating convergence of different things that interest me. So I wanted to talk about it, watch a few things. Yeah, and like El Rayito says, another really interesting point to me is that it's it was here. It made its debut here in the 2024 Olympics, and it's already out for 2028. Um, and that brought up a lot of questions for me, and so I assembled some media here to try to find some answers. Um, Alice Wetterland, hello. No, I was not. Yeah, no, that would have been so rude of me to constantly interrupt him if I was on live with him. Um, but yeah, so I had a bunch of questions. I looked around for some media to try to find some answers. Um, the first question that I was very interested in is how sports are chosen, because that's been a very interesting thread to unravel for me. Um, Alice, but speaking of which, I got to start getting people on here. So anytime you want to come, and anytime you want to come on, I'll interview you, Alice Wetterland, because you're amazing. So this first video I found is sports we bet you didn't know were part of the Olympics, and I feel like this is a good conversation starter here. So this is people running and jumping over horses. So I guess the way that you would win is if you could run and jump over the most horses. I learned in this that some sports are designated as demonstration events that come and go, and some sports are like full medaling events. And it's also interesting too because breaking, to my knowledge, wasn't a demonstration event. It just came in as a medaling event. But you can run, used to be able to just run. 6 early editions. They had the rope climb. So like Prescott, thank you for the gifted submarine. So like I have a question about this. Okay, so ski ballet, for it to have been a demonstration event, that means that they somehow had people qualified to do it who are the best ski ballet dancers, performers from all over the world for this demonstration event. And it's like when it's not in the Olympics, like is there a world championship? Like, what would motivate you to practice doing this all year if it's not in the Olympics? Like, what how do you just do this on the weekends? Like, this is so difficult. You have to be around snow. You have to practice twirling on your ski poles. Cross. So this was interesting to me too, because lacrosse is a pretty ubiquitous sport. Lacrosse is everywhere. There's tons of people that play lacrosse. There's world championships in lacrosse. There's college. Like, how did lacrosse get taken out of the Olympics if it's a sport that so many people play? Like, it's like I don't understand the conversation around the inclusion and exclusion of some of these, like a sport like lacrosse, which is lacrosse is not big outside of North America. I guess I didn't know that. I thought I in my mind it was probably bigger in Europe. It seems like the sport that would fit in over there with the cricket players. And rope manufacturers were pissed. So you took out the rope climb and the tug of war. So now they're just sitting on all this rope. But with like skiing sports, like, do they have to have the exact same incline? Like, do they have to find a mountain that has the exact gradient that is needed? Like, I don't know how you normalize skiing. That's sports that have been part of the Olympics. And then I looked up how exactly sports are chosen.
From 1980 to 2024, Nearly 100 events have been added to the Olympic program, begging the question, how are sports chosen for the Olympics?
Well, I don't mean, yes, I think I understand that they all have to compete on the same course. My question is more like, okay, if they do the Olympics in Nagano, Italy, and they do the Olympics in Calgary, how do they choose where the skiing will take place? Like, does it have to have a very particular decline in order to qualify as the place where the skiing will happen? You know, like, is there any normalizing from event to event? I guess is more what I'm asking.
And why do some sports never make it? A sport's path toward inclusion in the Olympics can be lengthy and complex, sometimes beginning years prior to the Olympics in which a sport is vying for entry. Step 1. Become recognized as a sport by the International Olympic Committee, or IOC. To be recognized, a sport must have an international non-governmental organization overseeing it.
So does that mean at one point there was an international commission on tug of war? Is that what they're saying?
Step 2. Attain International Sports Federation, or IF, status, and become subject to the World Anti-Doping Code, enforced by the Sports International Non-Governmental Organization. The Sports International Organization conducts out-of-competition drug tests on its competitors. These tests take place outside the time frame.
So you can't be a ski ballet person on steroids. You'll fuck it up for the entire sport.
Of any sporting competition. They can take place during training or outside of training completely. Step 3. The Sports IF files a detailed petition with the IOC to gain admittance. After all steps are completed, a sport might still be ruled out. The IOC bans purely mind sports and sports dependent.
Mind sports? Oh, I just like that as a concept. Mind sports? Like, what would even qualify as a mind sport?
Dependent upon mechanical propulsion, slashing hopes of seeing chess or automobile racing anytime soon.
Aye, okay, chess. So there's no hope for Connect 4 being in the Olympics?
Hoping to fast-track the process, the Olympic Agenda 2020, passed in 2014, established the precedent that the organizing committee of a specific Olympic Games may itself propose the inclusion of events to bolster the Games' popularity in a given locale. The Tokyo 2020...
Yo, belligerent, that is an amazing point, and we're going to get back to that. I hadn't heard that, but that's interesting that you heard the good Australian breakers all lost drug tests, which led to Raygun. That's fucking interesting. Let's put a pin in that.
The Games were the first to see this process through, calling for the inclusion of surfing, karate, sports climbing, skateboarding, baseball, and softball. The glory that comes with a sport finally reaching the Olympic stage can be short-lived, as the IOC attempts to manage the size of the Olympics by permitting new sports.
Conversational judo, Alice Wetterland.
Only when simultaneously discontinuing others. The introduction of breakdancing in 2024
verbal grenades that explode in a person's mind 2 hours later.
Or comes with the removal of baseball and softball, although a lack of proper fields for ball sports could also be a culprit. Over the years, polo and water skiing were bid farewell, while cricket and lacrosse made comebacks. Even tug of war once held its own as a respected Olympic sport.
That guy on the end. Well, first of all, he got a big old butt. That's crazy. And then he's putting his whole soul into pulling that rope. And it doesn't seem like the people laying on the ground are, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're doing the same thing there. It seems like they're using two different strategies at the same time. It doesn't seem, well, what the hell do I know? I haven't done a tug of war since like the 8th grade.
Who knows? Maybe we'll see its return soon.
Lisa Chase-Wolf, you're so right. Sounds like I could hear Jeff Jarrett's music over the Mind Sports pay-per-view. So that's how stuff is chosen. So then it leads into this question on should breakdancing have been in this year's Olympics? And I, for one, was happy to see it. I'm a former breakdancer. Some people know that about me. Most people probably don't. But Me and Still Rift and Psalm 1 and all of our buddies in high school, Mr. AQ, we used to break dance every day in high school. We have our school day and we'd all link up wherever we wouldn't get kicked out because we'd have to move around the school. We used to do it in the theater for a while until we got kicked. We got kicked out of the theater because we kept scuffing the floor up, so they got pissed at us. Then we moved into like the back of the arts building, like on this little landing. But then, basically once an adult ran into us 2 or 3 times, they were like, y'all got to stop. But mostly because we were fucking, there was nobody there to guide us, watch us, monitor us as we were like attempting to spin on our heads on school grounds. So it was in the school's best interest to stop us from doing that whenever they found us doing that. But we used to do it every day. It was a big part of our lives. So I, for one, was very happy to see it in the Olympics. But there's a lot of people who don't consider it a sport. And some people present the arguments of, a sport should be defined by something that has like a clear winner, like the fastest person in a race or the person who can pole vault over the highest the highest height or whatever. And since breaking is subjective, they feel like it shouldn't be included. But, you got gymnastics, you have all sort of stuff that's based on being judged. So to me, that doesn't carry weight. But I think there's also the idea that breaking is like a street thing. And somehow that makes it low of a lower cultural value than a lot of these other things. But I did see the guy who failed the pole vault because he had an enormous penis, and he didn't have any drag queen friends to help him tuck it, so to teach him how to tuck it. So he knocked the pole down with his penis. It was rough. It was rough. It looked like a bad way to go. Like there's a lot of ways that having a large penis could help you in life, but that seemed to be a hindrance when it came to that. Get into the bullshit. We got to get into the bullshit. We got to get into the lady.
In the wake of the Paris Olympics,
I'm working.
Of a heated debate following her controversial performance at the 2024 Paris Olympics.
I thought I had the full. Yeah, I think this is the full one. Now, this lady fucking fascinates me. Part of the story of breakdancing at the Olympics is having breakdancing in this environment, which is very strict, very regimented. It is not indicative of the environment in which high-level breaking usually takes place in. Like, yeah, there's federations. Yes, there's high-level competitions. But this environment is one of the strictest on earth. And I noticed even watching some of what I saw, some of the earlier rounds, people who I could tell were very good at this were not giving their best. I do think there were some nerves at play. And nerves is a difficult thing to deal with while you're breaking because it demands so much of your body. So like if you're trying to hit a pose and you're wiggling, like, because you're nervous, it's gonna look like you don't know what you're doing. But I think this lady Raygun, I think I'll show you this. This is some. I found some video of her breaking in Australia.
Who's coming through?
Okay, so this is her on the left.
Round one.
So this is Don. This is Raygun versus Don. This is Australian break.
Yeah. All right. Raygun. Round one.
Okay, so this is Raygun breaking. This is her in Australia doing her thing, right? She's got some technique. This is some up rock. This is decent, right? To the beat. Different styles, using the whole floor. So this low rock happening here. It's not on beat anymore. Doing some moves, but not on beat. And this is this is good, basic stuff. Now she's doing some of that sliding stuff, right? But not as much as what she was doing in the Olympics.
Yeah.
But I wanted to show some of this stuff because she does have like some basic technique. I also heard somewhere that part of her rationale for why she did what she did, because as you can see, this is different than what she was doing on the Olympics. Now, what I heard her say was that she was not going to beat the other dancers in power moves. So she felt like she needed to be more creative and expressive. And for her, that meant her choosing to roll around on the floor and do kangaroo hops and kicks. And like, she was trying to win on style, but she's bad at fundamentals and her style choices are juvenile. So ultimately she just got exposed for not having the right technique. And for my position as a former breakdancer, I think she's being roasted appropriately for shitting the bed. Now, where I think this conversation gets a little hairy is that I've heard some people say that she shouldn't. And it's difficult to say because it's part of a larger conversation, specifically from the perspective of a lot of old hip hop heads who were mad that there weren't a lot of black people or Americans, that the Americans didn't win, and that there weren't a lot of black people doing this. And to me, that is so disingenuous and so bullshit. Like, if somebody got in and they did bad, like her Olympic routine got 0 points from the judges, which is fucking appropriate because she was bullshit, right? But you can't use that to say that, oh, more black people should be, because that, if you've been paying attention to breakdancing, I used to breakdance in high school. I was part of a minority of people in my high school who were interested in that. I went to a very black high school. We were weird for doing that. That was part of our hip hop weirdness, is that we like to do stuff like breakdance. I remember we did a rap and breakdance thing as part of the senior talent show, and people were like, "Oh, that's cool. Y'all flip real good." There wasn't an organic reverence for the hip hop arts where I grew up, and this was the 90s. So yeah, if you're looking at the history of breakdance and how it started, that was a lot of black and brown people in New York and in inner cities. But that's not who does this now. And it hasn't been for a long time. You know, like, if you're mad that there aren't enough black people in it, like, nobody's keeping them from it. I think that's where the conversation starts to get a little difficult for me, because some people make it sound like there's some unseen invisible hand or army of PhD'd white women keeping black people away from breakdancing, when that's part of the story of hip hop, is that hip hop was introduced into the world as these 4 arts, right? Rap, graffiti, DJ, and breakdancing. But along like the 50 years that this has been in existence, it's taken different paths. People have taken different paths. The hip hop community here in America has taken different paths. And breakdancing is no longer reflective of the interests of people in the inner city now, and it hasn't been for years. It hasn't been. So the people who took breaking and ran with it were people who were interested in doing it. Now it was a lot of white people and a lot of Asian people and a lot of international people from all sorts of walks of life, while people in the inner city got interested in different things. And I think like that's just the honest assessment you have to give it if you've been paying attention to it. If you haven't thought about breakdancing in 30 years and you turn on the Olympics and you see a white girl in a do-rag named B-Girl Nika, and she's dope, right? But you're seeing all the presentation now, I could see it being a little bit surprising. But I don't think it's nefarious. I think it's the honest development of what has happened. Graffiti is much the same way. It used to be a lot of black and brown people doing graffiti. That's no longer the case. These arts develop, different people get interested in them. There's nothing necessarily linking your ability to enjoy or be good at breakdancing with race. And so you have to look at who's participating. Australia is a very white place. There's brown people there too, but maybe those brown people there are mostly not into breakdancing, and that's okay. That's okay. And so, yes, Raygun should be roasted, but I don't know. I just think, especially within the hip hop community, we have to look at the choices that people inside of the culture made, choices people outside of the culture made, and just as individuals, we have to look at, okay, if I say I care about this art form, have I done anything to participate in it? Have I done anything to uphold it? Have I done anything to reflect my care of this art form to the world? Because if I haven't, then I can't necessarily be mad at somebody else who has. I think that's all I've got to say about that. I think that's all I've got to say about that. There's plenty of great breaking at the Olympics. I do hope it comes back. I think that's a really cool thing for hip hop. I think that's a really cool thing to see a hip hop art given that kind of reverence. And I do hope we get to see it again.